course there have been a number of conversions. We don't have exact figures. We would estimate somewhere between 15 and 20,000. Community formation in terms of these mosques as places of worship to meet those needs, specialist shops, social and cultural institutions, meeting educational needs, and the rise of organizations. These are all signs of settled communities who are very much part of society. And we've seen these from the 80s onwards. Unfortunately, we have reached a state of affairs in Britain today where it's almost impossible to build a new mosque without some campaign by the British National Party to frustrate it. And that's a very sad state of affairs for Britain today. And lastly, there are a whole range of contemporary issues which I'm sure we could spend all evening discussing, but a mix of all of those factors together has given rise to issues, questions around identity, socio-economic challenges, migratory patterns, different ethnicities, contemporary issues regarding education, unemployment and housing, but also about racism and Islamophobia, political representation, gender issues, equality, and how we deal with what can be regarded as widespread discrimination amongst large sections of Muslim communities, and even, it has to be said, Islamic thought. Issues around identity, mosques and other institutions, crime and delinquency. One figure I didn't put up there was that we make up less than 3% of the population. We make up more than 12% of the prison population. So 4 times the proportion are in prison, not because of terrorism legislation either. And the whole issue about, do we focus on the domestic or are we affected by what's going on internationally in a global culture? So just a range of issues there regarding British Muslims. But once again, I'd like to go back to the title and say that this change from in to of is a process that began in the 1960s, and it's something which is ongoing. And it's interesting, if you want to see the literature of rejectionists, people who say we either reject democracy, or perhaps the British National Party, who reject the idea of people being both British and Muslim, if you look at the language, it's very much about Muslims inside. As if you're something inside, almost like a germ inside, or you've got inside the enemy's castle. Whereas the language ought to be more about